The story of Polybius is perhaps the biggest unsolved mystery in gaming. An evil arcade cabinet that drove its players crazy, being used by shadowy men to brainwash unsuspecting gamers using bright colors and subliminal messages. It seems far-fetched.
That the longer they play and the more they play aggressive games, they start thinking in an aggressive way and they have more aggressive attitudes.
Less than a year ago, the American Psychological Association made a definitive statement. There is a clear, unequivocal link between violent video games, violent behavior. Their blood pressure goes up, their heart rate goes up, violent actions go up. The data is persistent and clear across many different forms. You cannot deny it.
Never saw this one before.
The video games, the movies, the internet stuff is so violent. It's so incredible. I see it.
And as a result, most journalists write it off as being just an urban legend or some glitchy prototype of the Atari game Tempest. However, their judgments are based on the fact that no hard physical evidence of the game exists. Instead, I propose turning the Polybius myth on its head and looking at its anecdotal evidence. Is there a history of real-life men in black running brainwashing tests on unsuspecting civilians? Can a video game cause intense side effects like insomnia and memory loss? And ultimately, why would a demonic machine like this just disappear? I warn you, dear theorists, that my findings may be the single most disturbing revelation that this show has ever. In the aftermath of World War II, as the US and Russia fought to become the world's dominant superpower, the US government instituted what was known as Operation Paperclip, a covert operation to recruit top Nazi scientists, many of whom had studied brainwashing and torture, some who had even been prosecuted as war criminals. With their help, the US began researching mind control and behavior modification techniques under various code names: Project Artichoke, Project Bluebird, and perhaps the most troubling, MK Ultra. I would make a joke here about this being a prequel installment for the Mortal Kombat universe, but the work of these agents was nothing to laugh about, because MK Ultra was a covert operation performed on unsuspecting citizens of the US and Canada. Beginning in 1953, using front organizations like prisons, hospitals, and universities, the CIA began subjecting civilians to psychotropic drugs like LSD in an attempt to unlock the secrets of brainwashing and develop the perfect truth serum. For example, the CIA set up whorehouses, where they secretly drugged horny men before watching their behaviors behind one-way mirrors. In a joke that writes itself, the mission was named Operation Midnight Climax. But not all of their operations were so rife with comedy. One mental patient in Kentucky was given daily doses of LSD for half a year. Then there's the work of Dr. Ewan Cameron, who put patients with minor depression and anxiety issues into drug-induced comas, where he tried to brainwash them using tape-recorded messages. Horrific? Yes, making it all the more important to note that during this time, Dr. Cameron was selected to serve as president of the World Psychiatric Association. And even though this happened between the 50s and 70s, the stories continue to come out. In 2009, documents were uncovered suggesting that a mass psychotic outbreak in the French village of Pont Saint-Esprit, originally blamed on a bread fungus, may have resulted from a massive MK Ultra test. And like the Bourne Identity, all of this had to stay quiet, like in 1953 when Frank Olson, a US Army biochemist and biological weapons researcher, suddenly quit his job after having moral concerns about their actions. He was found dead a week later. Originally ruled as a suicide from jumping out a window, in 1994, 40 years later, a new autopsy revealed that he had been knocked unconscious prior to being thrown out a 13th story window. Cool story, bro, but what does any of this have to do with Polybius? In November of 1980, Atari released Battlezone, a vector graphic tank shooter equipped with 3D goggles, making it the first ever virtual reality game. A month later, the US Army contacted Atari to make a special version of that game that could be used to train actual tank gunners. This official partnership between Atari and the Army occurred just months before Polybius was supposedly unleashed in the arcades of Portland. Not only that, but Ed Rotberg, key programmer for Battlezone, is also said to be the creator of Polybius. Coincidence? Perhaps. But it doesn't stop there. Polybius was described as half maze, half shooter, with spinning colors and flashing lights that became more intense as the game went on. This description perfectly mimics an LSD trip, the same drug that MKUltra was using on civilians. LSD causes users to hallucinate radiant colors, crawling geometric patterns, morphing objects, and have the sensation that time is speeding up or slowing down. And I know what you're thinking. How could an arcade game possibly drug a player? But here's the thing. LSD can be anything, from a liquid, to a pill, to a little breath strip, or even a piece of jello. As part of MKUltra's attempts to stay unidentified, the CIA literally hired a magician to teach field agents how to slip LSD into the drinks of its targets. In addition, a related project, Project SPAN, had scientists trying to determine if the drug LSD could be used in an aerosol form. If setting up brothels, hospitals, and universities was par for the course, why not an arcade at a time when video games were exploding on the market and had already proven their worth in military training? Finally, we get to the side effects. Night terrors, memory loss, suicide. All of these are symptoms pointing towards post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, which can easily occur from bad LSD trips. Just take it from one former soldier who was interrogated using this method.
That was a bad trip. The pain was so excruciating, felt like somebody was sticking me with 1,000,000 pins, you know, just everywhere. Oh, it just...
Many speculate that being unprepared for LSD can cause individuals to feel like they're going crazy, that they're starting to lose control of their mind. Young, unsuspecting gamers, easy targets for such ill effects. So all told, MKUltra explains to Men in Black the government's connection to video games, the conflicting descriptions of the game itself, and the negative effects felt by the players. The only trick is with the timing. With the Watergate scandal hot in the news in 1973, the head of the CIA ordered all MKUltra documents destroyed and the experiments discontinued, a full 7 years before Polybius supposedly hit Portland. However, a misfiling resulted in 20,000 documents surviving the purge, which is how we know about MKUltra in the first place. But wait a minute. A misfiling resulted in some of the government's darkest secrets coming to light? I don't buy it. And neither does Victor Marchetti, a 14-year CIA veteran who served during this period, quit, and later wrote his own expose, the first book in history the federal government of the United States ever went to court to censor. Victor has gone on the record to say that the CIA closing down MKUltra was a cover story, a disinformation campaign to distract people from the real tests still happening. I quote, "The real reason for the official secrecy in most instances is not to keep the opposition from knowing what is going on. The enemy usually does know. The basic reason for governmental secrecy is to keep you, the American public, from knowing. For you too are considered the opposition, the enemy. In fact, they can even lie to you about what they are doing or have done, and you will not know it." End quote. And doesn't it make sense that an experiment like Polybius would have no paper trail? Sure, running experiments on unsuspecting civilians is appalling, but administering drugs and subliminal messaging to children? That's indefensible. So Polybius, urban legend or government experiment? I'll let you decide. But remember, it's all just a theory. A